Millionaire kissed a homeless girl to escape a forced marriage. But what happened next left him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. The night air in downtown New York was sharp with the glow of neon signs and the sound of camera shutters clicking like distant thunder. Outside the Grand Halden Hotel, reporters lined the red carpet, waiting for one man, Logan Hale, the young millionaire heir of Hale Properties, a name printed on every luxury building in the city. Logan adjusted the cuff of his navy blue suit and stepped out of his car. The cameras exploded in white light. He hated this kind of attention, but tonight was worse than usual. His family had arranged for him to announce his engagement to Clara Carrington, the daughter of another powerful dynasty. It was a deal dressed up as love, a merger disguised as marriage. He was supposed to smile for the press, shake a few hands, and play the obedient son. But inside, his chest felt like it was locked in iron. He wanted out. That was when he saw her. A few feet away, near the hotel's marble steps, stood a young woman with tangled brown hair and a worn gray coat. She was clutching a small backpack, trying to avoid the cameras as security guards pushed the crowd back. Her name was Maya Bennett, though he did not know it yet. She had come hoping to pick up leftover food from the catering staff. To everyone else, she was invisible. To him, at that exact second, she looked like freedom. The flashbulbs were blinding now, and a reporter shouted, "Logan, is the wedding announcement tonight?" He froze. His throat tightened. He could already imagine tomorrow's headlines. Billionaire Hale confirms marriage deal. And then, without thinking, he moved. He walked straight toward the girl, his polished shoes splashing through the thin layer of rain on the pavement. Maya's eyes widened as this stranger in a $1,000 suit grabbed her hand. "What are you?" she began. But before she could finish, he pulled her close and pressed his lips against hers. The world exploded in light. Dozens of cameras fired like lightning. Reporters screamed his name. Somewhere behind them, someone gasped, "Who is she?" For one surreal second, she felt the heat of his breath, the scent of expensive cologne, and the tremble in his hand. Then he pulled back, eyes wide, as if realizing what he had just done. "Thank you," he whispered, almost to himself. "You just saved my life." And then he turned and walked into the hotel, leaving her standing in a storm of flashing lights and confusion. Maya's heart pounded. Around her, people stared, some laughing, some filming. She clutched her backpack tighter and backed away from the chaos. She had no idea that a single impulsive kiss from a desperate millionaire would drag her from the shadows of the city into a spotlight she never asked for, and that this reckless moment would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the glass towers of Manhattan, but the city did not wait quietly. Every digital billboard and gossip page flashed the same headline: "Mystery Girl Kissed by Millionaire Logan Hale." Reporters replayed the kiss again and again, their voices filled with speculation. Some called it a love story, others called it a scandal. And in the middle of it all, two people were living through entirely different kinds of chaos. Inside the Hale residence, Logan stood by the window of his penthouse, overlooking Central Park. His phone vibrated nonstop with calls from publicists, investors, and his grandfather, the man who controlled the family's empire. He did not pick up. He could already imagine the fury waiting on the other end. Behind him, his assistant's voice trembled. "Sir, the Carrington family has called twice. They are demanding a statement. They want to know if the engagement is still happening." Logan turned slowly, his jaw tight. "Tell them to cancel everything." The assistant froze. "Cancel? But your grandfather." "I said cancel," Logan interrupted, his tone low but final. He was tired of being a name on a contract, a pawn in a family alliance. The kiss had been reckless, yes, but for the first time in years, he had acted by choice, not by order. Across the city, Maya Bennett sat on the edge of a narrow cot in a church shelter. The old television in the corner was showing the same footage, zooming in on her stunned face under the flashes of light. Around her, a few women whispered and pointed. "That is her," one of them said. "The girl he kissed." Maya's cheeks burned. Her phone, an old cracked one she barely kept charged, buzzed with messages she did not want to open. Some strangers offered modeling deals. Others hurled insults. One message simply said, You should be grateful he even touched you." She turned it off. Grateful? For what? Losing the only place she could sleep without fear. The shelter director had already told her that too much attention was bad for their privacy. "You might need to find another place for a few nights," he had said carefully. By noon, she was walking the streets again, clutching her backpack, her coat pulled tight against the cold wind. Every screen she passed replayed her humiliation. Each time the clip ran, the world saw her as a story, not a person. Meanwhile, at the top floor of the Hale Tower, Logan faced a wall of family portraits in a room full of anger. His grandfather, Robert Hale, sat behind a mahogany desk. Next to him was Derek Vaughn, Logan's cousin and the company's chief financial officer, his smirk thin and sharp. Robert's voice was thunder. "You think this circus will save you from your obligations? You were supposed to marry Clara Carrington this weekend? Now, the press thinks you have thrown it all away for some—" He stopped before finishing the word. Logan met his gaze. "For some stranger? Maybe that is what it looks like. But I will not marry for business." Derek leaned forward, enjoying the tension. "Then maybe you should marry that stranger instead. The public already loves the story. Billionaire chooses love over duty. It would sell beautifully. It would even make this family look human." Robert slammed a hand on the desk. "Enough!" But the seed had already been planted. Later that evening, Logan sat alone in his office. The city lights blinked like restless thoughts. He replayed the scene in his mind, the girl's startled eyes, the rain on her eyelashes, the way she did not cling to him or try to smile for the cameras. She had simply looked confused and real. He opened his laptop and typed a single order to his security team. "Find her. Her name, where she is staying, everything." While his staff began their quiet search, Maya found a corner of the city library still open late. She dropped her backpack, pulled out a sketchbook, and drew the only thing that calmed her nerves. On the paper, she drew two silhouettes under a storm of camera flashes. She did not know why, but she added a line of light connecting them, as if fate itself had drawn it there. Outside, the screens of Times Square still showed her face beside his. Two strangers locked in a kiss neither had meant to share. Yet somewhere deep inside both of them, something had shifted. Logan Hale, the man who had everything, was suddenly haunted by the thought of the girl who had nothing, and Maya Bennett, the girl the world mocked, could not forget the man who had kissed her and then disappeared into the lights. 2 days passed, and the story refused to die. Every network had its own version. Some called it a Cinderella miracle. Others called it a publicity stunt. The Hale family issued no official statement, and that silence only made the mystery louder. Inside the shelter cafeteria, Maya kept her head down as she washed dishes for a meal she could not finish. The other volunteers whispered her name, but she ignored them. Her world had shrunk to that gray sink, the smell of soap, and the weight of embarrassment she could not rinse away. At the same time, across town in a glass tower above the skyline, Logan Hale stood in front of a boardroom filled with reporters and executives. Every camera pointed at him, waiting for a confession. His voice was calm, but there was exhaustion behind every word. "I appreciate everyone's concern," he said evenly, "but there will be no further comment regarding my personal life." Cree. The questions kept coming. Was she your girlfriend? Is the engagement canceled? Who is the girl? But he ended the conference and walked out without answering. In private, his assistant approached hesitantly. "Sir, the media team says this will not go away until you give them something to focus on. The public loves her story." Logan exhaled. "Find her. Bring her here. I owe her that much." That afternoon, Maya was sitting on the church steps with a paper cup of soup when a black SUV stopped at the curb. 2 security men stepped out, followed by a woman in a neat suit who smiled politely. "Miss Bennett," she asked, "Mr. Hale would like to speak with you." Maya nearly laughed. "Mr. Hale? The man who kissed me without asking? The one who ruined my life for a news cycle?" The woman's smile softened. "He would like to apologize in person, that is all." For a long moment, Maya wanted to refuse, but curiosity and anger pulled her into the car. The drive through the city was silent. When they reached the Hale Tower, the marble lobby gleamed like another planet. Her reflection in the glass looked out of place, frayed coat, chipped nails, old backpack slung over her shoulder. The elevator doors opened to a room wrapped in sunlight and glass. Logan stood there, not in a suit, but in a gray sweater and dark jeans, looking nothing like the man from the headlines. He turned when she stepped in. "Maya Bennett," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." She crossed her arms. You did not give me much of a choice. I know, he said. I also know that one stupid decision has made your life miserable. I am sorry. He motioned toward the table where 2 cups of coffee waited, untouched. She did not sit. Do you always solve your problems by kissing strangers? The corner of his mouth twitched. Only when every other option is worse. For a second, the tension broke. Then he leaned forward, voice steady. I will be honest with you. My family is forcing me to marry someone I do not love. The press already believes you are my girlfriend. If I do not turn this into something believable, they will destroy both of us. But if I make it real, at least for a little while, everyone wins. Her eyebrows shot up. Make it real? You mean pretend? Yes, he said. A temporary agreement. 3 months. You will live at my residence, attend a few public events, and help me end this arranged marriage without humiliating either family. Maya stared at him as if he had lost his mind. You want me to pretend to be your fiancé? You think you can just buy my cooperation? He shook his head. No, I think I can offer you safety, shelter, a chance to start over. You are free to say no. Silence filled the room. Outside the window, the city stretched endless and cold. She thought of the shelter director telling her not to come back. She thought of sleeping under the overpass again, of the fear that never left her at night. What is in it for you? She asked. Freedom, he said simply. Freedom from a marriage built on business. She studied his face, expecting arrogance, but saw something else: honesty mixed with exhaustion. If I say yes, what happens to me when the 3 months are over? He hesitated. You get your life back, and I will make sure you never worry about a place to sleep again. Her fingers tightened on the strap of her backpack. What are the rules? He pulled a folder from the desk and placed it in front of her. 5 clauses. You can read them all before signing. She opened it and read aloud, her voice dry. 1. No revealing the truth to the media. 2. Appear together at all scheduled events. 3. No personal interference in each other's lives. 4. No romantic involvement. 5. All images taken by the press belong to the Hale Corporation. She looked up. Clause 4. No romantic involvement. That is convenient, considering you already broke it. He almost smiled. I deserved that. She closed the folder slowly. I do not trust you, Mr. Hale. I do not expect you to, he replied. I just ask for 3 months. After that, I will make sure you have the means to live wherever you want. Maya turned toward the window. The skyline shimmered like a dream just out of reach. The city had never been kind to her. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for kindness and start demanding fairness. When she looked back, she saw a man who seemed trapped by his own fortune. For the first time, she realized they were both trying to escape something. Finally, she said, Fine, but I have one condition. Logan raised an eyebrow. Which is? You do not talk to me like an employee. If we are pretending to be in love, at least pretend to respect me. He nodded slowly. Deal. She exhaled and picked up the pen. The sound of it scratching against paper filled the silence between them. When she handed the folder back, Logan extended his hand. Welcome to our 3-month agreement, Miss Bennett. Her palm met his, cool and unsure. And for the first time since that night in the rain, they both realized the same dangerous truth: sometimes pretending is the fastest way to uncover what is real. The following morning, the contract was no longer just words on paper. It was a living, breathing secret. Logan Hale's penthouse buzzed with activity. Stylists unpacked racks of designer clothes, assistants arranged schedules, and security briefed staff on what to say if reporters called. At the center of it all stood Maya Bennett, barefoot, overwhelmed, clutching the same backpack she had carried since the shelter. A makeup artist whispered to her coworker, "Is that really the girl from the photo?" They tried to hide their curiosity behind polite smiles, but Maya felt every stare like static in the air. Logan entered the room, calm but direct. "Everyone give us a moment." When the door closed, she finally exhaled. "So this is what it feels like to be a headline." He looked at her carefully. "It will calm down in a few days. The media storm never lasts long." She raised an eyebrow. "Easy for you to say. You have a penthouse to hide in. I had a cot in a shelter." His expression softened. "That is why you are here now." He reached for a small box on the table and opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring. "We will need this for appearances. It is not real, but it will look real enough for the cameras." Maya studied it, her lips pressed tight. "So that is it? I wear this Smile, and everyone believes I am your fiancé? That is the plan, he said. But you do not have to smile if you do not want to. For a second, her defenses cracked. She looked at the ring, then at him. You really hate this, do you not? All of this pretending. He gave a dry laugh. Pretending has been my whole life. This is just a new version of it. The elevator chimed. His assistant stepped in, holding a folder. Sir, the media schedule for the next 2 weeks. The gala for the charity foundation will be the first event together. Logan nodded. Thank you, Claire. He turned to Maya. It will be crowded, but you will not be alone. I will be with you the entire time. She looked at him, uncertain. You make it sound like I am walking into a war zone. He met her eyes. You are. The polite kind, with champagne. That evening, Maya moved into one of the guest suites at the penthouse. The room was larger than the entire floor of the shelter she had stayed in. The bed looked untouched, the sheets white as snow. A vase of lilies sat by the window, their scent unfamiliar but calming. She placed her old backpack on the chair and hesitated. Should she hide it? Should she pretend it did not exist, just like everyone else wanted to pretend she fit in here? Instead, she unzipped it and carefully took out her sketchbook, setting it on the nightstand. Then she hung her gray coat, the one from that rainy night, on the back of the chair. The fabric was worn and thin, but it was hers. A soft knock came at the door. Logan stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. You probably need this. She accepted the cup cautiously. Do you always hand coffee to your fake fiancés? He smiled faintly. You are my first. They sat opposite each other, the skyline glowing behind them. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she broke the silence. What were you like before all of this? Before the money? The cameras? He took a slow sip. Before all of this, I was a kid who wanted to build houses that people could actually afford. Then the board decided those dreams did not make money. She tilted her head. So you built towers instead. He nodded, and forgot who they were supposed to be for. Maya leaned back, studying him. Maybe this whole mess is what you needed. He raised an eyebrow. To ruin my reputation? To remember who you wanted to be? Her honesty caught him off guard. No one in his world spoke to him that way. Most people measured their words around him like fragile glass. But she just said what she saw, without fear. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. A message from Derek lit up the screen. Press release scheduled for tomorrow. You and the girl need to look convincing. He sighed and put the phone face down. Tomorrow we will have our first public appearance as an engaged couple. Maya groaned. Great. What do I wear to pretend I belong? Whatever makes you feel like yourself, he said. That is the only version that will ever convince anyone. She gave a short laugh. That might be a problem. Myself does not fit into this world. Then make this world fit around you, he said quietly. The next morning, flashes from photographers greeted them the moment they stepped out of the car. Logan's hand rested gently at her back, guiding her through the noise. Maya tried not to flinch, but every camera flash felt like lightning in her eyes. Inside the event hall, chandeliers sparkled, and every conversation hummed with judgment. People whispered her name, pretending they were not staring. Logan leaned close enough for only her to hear. They will test you. Smile if you can, walk away if you cannot. She nodded, her breath steadying. A journalist approached, microphone raised. Miss Bennett, before meeting Mr. Hale, where were you living? Maya froze for half a heartbeat. Then, with a calm she did not know she had, she said, I was living where many people in this city live, between hope and survival. That is why I believe in what this charity does. The reporter blinked, caught off guard by her composure. Logan watched her with quiet admiration. For the first time in a long time, he smiled not for the cameras, but because he was proud. As they moved deeper into the crowd, Maya whispered, You could have warned me that these people have sharper teeth than wolves. He chuckled. You handled them better than I ever have. That night, back at the penthouse, she removed the silver ring and set it on the counter. Logan stood by the window again, looking out at the city lights. Was I convincing enough for your world? She asked softly. He turned. You were not convincing, you were real. That is why it worked. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, the distance between their two worlds felt smaller. Neither of them said another word, but both understood that something had shifted. The contract might have started as a performance, yet beneath the surface, something unplanned had already begun to take root. Days turned into a quiet rhythm neither of them had expected. The world outside still gossiped about their supposed engagement, but inside the penthouse, the noise began to fade. The air between them felt different, still careful, but softer now. Maya spent most mornings sitting by the window sketching the skyline. She said the lines of the buildings helped her think. Logan would leave early for meetings, then return late. His tie loosened and his eyes tired. They had fallen into a strange domestic pattern, half real, half pretend. One evening, after another long day of press calls and photo shoots, Logan came home to find Maya in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, trying to figure out the coffee machine. She glanced up at him and grinned. "I swear this thing is more complicated than your business contracts." He laughed, the sound surprising even himself. "You are supposed to press the second button, not the first." "Then why is the first button even there?" she teased. "Is it just to make poor people feel stupid?" Her tone was light, but the honesty in her voice made him pause. "It is there because people like me think everything needs extra options. We complicate what should be simple." She poured him a cup and handed it over. "You just admitted that out loud, Mr. Hale. Are you sure the world is ready for this level of truth?" He smiled faintly. "I think the world could use a little more of it." They stood there, quiet for a moment, the city buzzing beneath them. For the first time, Logan realized how peaceful silence could be when it was shared with the right person. The next night, they had another event, a charity dinner hosted by the Hale Foundation. This time, Maya was more prepared. She wore a navy dress, simple but elegant, her hair tied back. When she entered the ballroom with Logan, heads still turned, but not with mockery. There was curiosity now, even a trace of respect. During the evening, a reporter approached again. But this time she met the question head-on. "Miss Bennett, how does it feel to be engaged to one of the most powerful men in New York?" Maya smiled politely. "I do not think power is about money or buildings. Power is about what you do for others." "I think that is something Mr. Hale is learning too." The crowd chuckled, but Logan's expression softened. He knew she had just defended him in the most graceful way possible. When the dinner ended, they left through a quiet side exit. The city air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. Logan turned to her. "You were incredible in there." She shrugged. "I just said what felt true." "Most people do not risk saying the truth when the cameras are on," he said. She looked up at him. "Then maybe that is why you need someone like me in your fake life." He met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. "Maybe I do." They walked the few blocks home in silence. The tension between them was not uncomfortable anymore, it was charged, alive. Later that week, Logan had a business trip that took him out of the city for 2 days. Maya stayed behind, trying to avoid the endless coverage on television. But the quiet gave her too much time to think. She wandered through the penthouse, tracing the edges of framed photos, Logan shaking hands with governors, cutting ribbons at new developments, smiling in ways that looked practiced. Then she found something that did not fit, a photo tucked into the corner of a bookshelf. It was an old picture of a woman holding a little boy in front of a small house with peeling paint, Logan as a child, his mother. The smile on her face was pure and warm, nothing like the frozen smiles of the socialites who now surrounded him. Maya gently set the frame back down. For the first time, she understood how far he had traveled from that small house and how lonely the journey must have been. That evening when he returned, she waited in the kitchen. "I saw the picture of your mother," she said quietly. He stopped, surprised. "You went through my things?" "I was not snooping. It was just there." She looked kind. He nodded slowly, his voice softening. "She was. She died when I was 19. My grandfather said grief is a distraction, so I worked instead. By the time I stopped, I had everything she wanted for me, except peace." Maya stepped closer, her tone gentle. "You built skyscrapers to fill the hole she left, but it is still there, is it not?" He exhaled, almost smiling. "You are dangerously good at seeing through people." "I am not. I just know what it looks like when someone hides pain behind success." He looked at her for a long time. Then, almost without thinking, he reached for her hand. "You make this charade feel real, Maya." Her heart skipped. "Maybe that is the problem, Logan. We are forgetting it is supposed to be fake." He did not answer, but he did not let go of her hand either. The space between them felt fragile, trembling with something both terrifying and beautiful. That night, when she returned to her room, she looked at her gray coat hanging by the door. It was still the same, worn, patched, and honest. She touched it lightly, as if it could remind her who she was before all of this. Out in the living room, Logan stood alone by the window again. The city lights reflected off the glass like distant stars. He looked at his phone, at the list of upcoming events, and at the folder marked contract agreement. He could not bring himself to open it, because somewhere deep inside he already knew the truth. The contract might have started as protection, but what he felt now had nothing to do with business. And for the first time since that reckless kiss in the rain, Logan Hale wondered if the biggest risk of his life was not the scandal he had created, but the woman he was beginning to fall for. The morning after the charity dinner, the world was still buzzing about how naturally they had looked together. Every entertainment column printed the same photo: Logan and Maya standing side by side, laughing like a couple who had known each other for years. For the first time, the comments online were not cruel. People wrote things like, "She seems real," and "He finally looks happy." Maya did not know how to feel about it. The public's love could flip into hate in a single headline, and she had learned not to trust applause that came from strangers. At breakfast, Logan poured coffee and handed her a cup. "You did perfectly last night," he said. "Even Derek texted me to say you handled the crowd better than I ever could." Maya smiled faintly. "That is not a compliment I am sure I want to accept." He chuckled. "Fair point. But I meant what I said. You were remarkable." She sipped her coffee, studying him over the rim of the cup. "Do you ever stop performing, even when the cameras are gone?" He hesitated before answering. "I am not sure I remember how." For a moment, silence filled the room. The sunlight poured through the windows, soft and gold. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that came not from lack of sleep, but from years of pretending to be someone the world demanded. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed with a sharp vibration. He checked the screen, and his jaw tightened. "The foundation wants us to attend the city council event tonight. It is about affordable housing. They expect us both to be there." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Affordable housing? That sounds ironic, coming from a man who builds towers for billionaires." His lips curved into a small, self-aware smile. "That is exactly why I should be there." That evening, the ballroom was smaller than the previous events, filled mostly with politicians, business owners, and local journalists. The lights were bright, but the air felt colder, more serious. Maya stood at Logan's side, wearing a cream dress and the same silver ring he had given her. The whispers followed them as always, but tonight she heard curiosity instead of mockery. The mayor began to speak, praising Logan's contributions to the city. Cameras flashed again, catching every polite smile, every nod. Then, unexpectedly, a reporter stood and asked the question that shifted the room. "Mr. Hale, your company has been criticized for pushing out low-income families to build luxury towers. How do you reconcile that with your new partnership and charity work?" Logan froze. His assistant shot him a warning glance. But before he could respond, Maya stepped forward slightly. She spoke calmly, her voice carrying through the room. "I think that is exactly why he is here, to change that pattern. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can choose to build differently in the future. Maybe that is what this partnership is really about." The crowd turned toward her, surprised. Logan stared too. She had just taken a potential attack and turned it into an opportunity. When the questions ended, he leaned close and whispered, "You saved me again." She smiled without looking at him. "You are welcome, boss." Quote. He murmured, "Do not call me that, not when you are the one rescuing me." After the event, they rode home in the same black car. The city glowed outside the window, wet streets shining from the drizzle that had started again. Logan loosened his tie, resting his head against the seat. "You know," he said softly, "you are better at this than I ever was." Maya turned toward him. "At pretending? At making it look real?" She laughed quietly. "Maybe that is because for me this is all new. For you, it is routine." He looked at her, serious now. "That is not true. Nothing about this feels routine anymore." Her heart skipped. The car fell silent except for the rain tapping the glass. Neither of them looked away, but both were afraid to say what they were thinking. When they arrived at the penthouse, Maya went straight to her room, pretending to be tired, but she could still feel his eyes on her as the elevator doors closed. Inside her room, she sat on the edge of the bed and opened her sketchbook. The first drawing she had made of him the night of the kiss was still there. Now she began a new one, softer this time. Two people standing in the rain, not running from the flashes, but facing them together. The next morning, Logan woke early to a phone call from his assistant. "Sir, the board has concerns about Miss Bennett. They say her background could damage the company's reputation if anyone finds out." He rubbed his temples. "We have already been through this. They have dug deeper. Someone leaked her old address. A reporter is asking if she ever lived in a shelter." Logan's tone hardened. "Shut it down. No comment from anyone. I will handle it. Quote. When he hung up, he knew exactly who would be behind it, Derek Vaughn. His cousin had always wanted the top position at Hale Properties, and this scandal would be the perfect weapon. Later that day, he found Maya in the living room reading. She looked up, immediately sensing his tension. What happened? Someone leaked part of your past, he admitted. I am sorry. I will take care of it. Her face went pale. Leaked? What do you mean? The press might start asking questions about where you lived before. I want you to stay inside until I sort this out. She laughed bitterly. You cannot erase my past, Logan. I lived in a shelter. That is the truth. I am not ashamed of it. I know you are not, he said. But they will twist it into something ugly. They will make you into a headline again. Her voice rose. Maybe they should. Maybe people need to see that not every story is polished. You cannot keep building walls around me to protect your image. He reached out, but she stepped back. This is not about my image, he said. Then what is it about? He hesitated. It is about you. The room went quiet. Her eyes softened for a moment, but then she shook her head. You cannot protect me from the truth, Logan. You should know that better than anyone. She turned and walked down the hall, leaving him standing there, the echo of her footsteps louder than any argument. That night, Logan sat alone in his office, staring at the contract between them. The lines about no romantic involvement felt like a cruel joke now. He had meant to save her from a scandal, but in doing so, he had made her feel like a secret again. He glanced at his reflection in the window, another man trapped behind glass, watching the city he owned but could not touch. And somewhere in the penthouse, Maya lay awake, wondering if she had just made the first crack in something that might have been real. The morning light felt heavier than usual inside the penthouse. The silence between Logan and Maya had stretched overnight, thick and unspoken. She avoided breakfast entirely, and he let her partly out of guilt, partly because he did not know what to say that would not make things worse. When he finally walked into the living room, she was standing by the window, her backpack slung over her shoulder. Are you going somewhere? He asked quietly. I just need air, she said. Do not worry. I will keep the contract. I will be back before the next photo shoot. He nodded, but his chest tightened. At least take the driver. It is not safe. She cut him off. I have been taking care of myself for years, Logan. I think I can handle a walk. And with that, she was gone. Logan watched the elevator doors close, frustration burning behind his calm expression. He had tried to shield her from the ugliness of his world, and in doing so, he had become part of it. Maya walked through the city for hours, blending into the crowds, letting the noise drown out the confusion in her head. The streets were alive, vendors shouting, sirens echoing, but she felt detached from it all. Every few steps, she caught glimpses of newsstands, showing her face beside his again. The headlines read, Mystery Fiancés, Shocking Past Revealed. She stopped in front of a small coffee shop with peeling blue paint. It looked familiar. Then she realized it was the place she used to stop for leftover pastries when the owner closed up at night. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The same older woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. Well, if it is not my favorite midnight visitor, I almost did not recognize you without that gray coat. Maya smiled sadly. It is still hanging in my room. The woman poured her a coffee on the house. So, you are the one on the news now. The girl who kissed the millionaire. Maya sighed. You make it sound like a fairy tale. Isn't it? The woman asked gently. Every girl dreams of being noticed like that. Maybe, Maya said, staring into her cup. But dreams feel different when they come with headlines. For a while, they talked about simple things, coffee beans, the weather, old movies. It grounded her, reminded her of who she was before the chaos. When she left the shop, the sky had darkened. A drizzle began to fall, soft and steady. She pulled her hood up and started walking back toward the penthouse, her thoughts tangled between gratitude and guilt. Meanwhile, at Hale Tower, Logan sat in a meeting he barely heard. His cousin Derek was presenting quarterly numbers, but all Logan could think about was the empty chair at breakfast and the fear that she might not come back. Derek closed his tablet and leaned back. By the way, the press already has everything about your little charity project. The more they dig, the more they will find. This woman is going to sink you, Logan. Logan's eyes snapped to his cousin. Watch what you say. Derek smirked. It is not an insult. It is business. The board is nervous. Investors do not like unpredictable stories. You can fix this by ending the contract early and releasing a joint statement about going separate ways. Logan's tone was calm but cold. You mean lie? Derek shrugged. Call it damage control. For the first time, Logan realized just how far Derek was willing to go. The exposure was not random, it was deliberate. The leak had his fingerprints all over it. He stood up from the table. If you ever touch her name again, I will destroy you. Derek laughed softly. Careful, cousin. You are starting to sound like you actually care. Logan walked out before he did something he would regret. That night, when Maya returned, she found him still in the living room, jacket tossed aside, tie undone. The look in his eyes was equal parts relief and apology. You were gone all day, he said quietly. I needed to remember who I was, she replied. He took a slow breath. You should know something. The leak, it was not random. Derek orchestrated it. He wants me to fail, and he thought hurting you would be the fastest way. Maya stared at him, the pieces fitting together. So this was a game between the rich again, and I am just the board piece that bleeds. No, he said quickly, you are not. That is exactly why I tried to protect you. Her eyes softened, but her voice was steady. You cannot protect me from what I already survived, Logan. You just have to stop being afraid of what people will think. He stepped closer, searching her face. And what about you? What do you think? She hesitated, then whispered, I think you are starting to forget this is pretend. He smiled faintly. Maybe I want to forget. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights flickered through the glass walls, reflecting off the silver ring on her hand. Somewhere outside, thunder rolled a warning or a promise. Finally, she broke the silence. We still have 2 months left on that contract. Let us just survive it without losing who we are. He nodded slowly, though his eyes told a different story. Because deep down, both of them already knew the line between pretending and feeling had disappeared the night they stopped running from each other. The following week, the storm that Logan had feared finally broke. A tabloid headline screamed across every screen in Manhattan. From shelter to penthouse, the truth about Logan Hale's fiancée. The article included photos of the church where Maya had stayed, the volunteers who remembered her, and even an interview with a former shelter worker who described her as a quiet girl who used to draw by the window. By noon, every news outlet had picked up the story. The internet turned it into entertainment memes, jokes, and cruel hashtags. People who had once praised her for being real now called her a fraud, a gold digger, a social experiment. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was heavy. Logan stood near the television, fists clenched, watching the broadcast replay the same photo of Maya over and over. He grabbed the remote and switched it off. This is my fault, he said, his voice low and strained. Maya sat across the room, her sketchbook open on her lap, though she had not drawn a single line. Her face was calm in a way that worried him. You cannot control what they say, she replied quietly. He turned toward her. I should have stopped this before it began. I thought I could protect you from my world, but I just dragged you into it. She looked up at him, her tone steady but her eyes tired. You did not drag me anywhere. I walked in. I signed that contract. I knew what I was agreeing to. He shook his head. You did not agree to be humiliated. The phone rang again, his assistant calling. He ignored it. The board wants me to issue a statement, he said finally. They want me to deny everything, to say you were hired for publicity, that it was never real. Maya closed her sketchbook slowly. So what will you tell them? He hesitated, the words heavy. I will not lie about you. She gave a faint, bittersweet smile. That will not save me, Logan. They have already decided who I am. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let me stand beside you. Let me show them they are wrong. Her breath caught. You cannot fight your whole world for me. Maybe it is time someone did, he said. Later that day, the doorbell rang. It was not the staff, it was reporters, dozens of them, shouting questions from the street below. Flashbulbs exploded through the windows, echoing that first night they had met. Logan ordered security to clear them out, but the damage was done. The next morning, new headlines appeared. Billionaire defends homeless fiancé, board demands explanation. By noon, Derek arrived at the penthouse unannounced. He walked in without knocking, holding a folder and wearing a smug grin. Congratulations, cousin. You have officially become a liability. Logan glared at him. You leaked it, did you not? Derek shrugged. The truth has a way of finding daylight. I just helped it along. The board has called an emergency session. If you do not end this ridiculous relationship, they will remove you as CEO. Maya stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You talk about people like they are numbers on a screen. Derek's eyes flicked toward her. And you talk like you belong here. But this world is built on perception, Miss Bennett. You will never change that. Logan stepped between them. Get out. Derek smiled thinly. I will. But when you lose your empire over a girl who used to sleep on church benches, remember I warned you. When he was gone, the silence that followed was deafening. Maya sank into the couch, her voice trembling despite her strength. He is right about one thing. You will lose everything because of me. Logan knelt in front of her, taking her hands. I have spent my whole life doing what this family demanded. For once, I want to do what feels right. And right now, that means standing with you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she pulled her hands back gently. You cannot fix this with loyalty, Logan. The world you come from does not forgive people like me. He shook his head. Then we will build our own world. She looked away, struggling between hope and fear. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed again, a news alert. He picked it up and froze. The screen showed a photo of them from earlier that day, her crying, him kneeling, and the caption, "The final act of the billionaire and his street girl." Maya saw it over his shoulder. Her expression went blank. They turned us into a story again. He put the phone down. Then we will give them an ending they do not expect. That night, Logan canceled all his meetings. He called his assistant, his PR team, and even the board chair, telling them the same thing, I will handle it my way. When he hung up, he found Maya standing by the window, looking out at the city. Do you ever wonder, she said softly, if we were meant to meet that night? Or if it was just one big mistake that keeps getting bigger? He walked to her side. Maybe both. Maybe the best things in life start as mistakes. She turned to face him, eyes glistening under the city lights. If that is true, then this might be the most beautiful mistake I have ever made. Neither of them moved for a moment, but the distance between them had never felt smaller. Outside, the rain began again, tapping gently against the glass, the same rhythm that had followed them since the night of that first reckless kiss. And deep down, they both knew the real storm had only just begun. The following morning, the fallout came faster than either of them had imagined. Every business channel repeated the same headline. Hale Empire in Crisis Board demands, CEO step down over scandal. News anchors discussed the story like it was a sport. Investors panicked, shares dropped, and the name Maya Bennett became the most searched phrase in the country. Logan sat in his office at Hale Tower, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than any argument. His assistant stood in the doorway, pale and hesitant. Sir, the board meeting starts in 15 minutes, she said softly. He nodded, his voice calm but distant. I will be there. When she left, he stared at the city outside his window, the skyline he had built. The empire that was supposed to prove his worth. Now it was trembling because he had chosen a moment of truth over a lifetime of performance. Meanwhile, at the penthouse, Maya watched the same news report play out. The footage showed Logan walking into the building, surrounded by cameras, but his face was unreadable. She could almost feel the weight he carried, and it broke something inside her. She closed her sketchbook and whispered to herself, he should not have to lose everything for me. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. 12 men and women sat around the long oak table, their expressions cold and precise. Derek stood at the far end, pretending to look sympathetic. Logan, the chairman began. We understand your personal situation has created unwanted attention. The shareholders are demanding action. The optics are hurting us. Logan leaned forward, hands clasped together. You are worried about optics. I am worried about integrity. You cannot run a company on lies and expect it to stand. Derek smirked. Integrity does not pay dividends, cousin. The public loves a scandal, but investors do not. We need stability. If you step down now, the company can recover. We will issue a statement saying you are taking time off for personal reasons. Logan's eyes met his cousin's. And you will take my seat. Derek shrugged. Someone has to keep the lights on. For a long moment, Logan said nothing. Then he stood. You can take the title if it means that much to you. But understand, this money can rebuild itself. Reputations can recover. What you will never have is a soul big enough to carry anything real. He walked out before anyone could respond. By the time he reached the penthouse, the sky had turned gray. Maya was waiting near the door, her expression a mix of guilt and worry. I saw the news, she said softly. Did they fire you? He exhaled slowly. I resigned. Her eyes widened. You gave up everything. I gave up a lie, he replied. There is a difference. She shook her head. tears threatening to fall. "I never wanted this. I thought I was helping you, but I just ruined your life." He stepped closer, his voice gentle. "You gave me the only honest thing I have had in years. That is not ruin, Maya. That is freedom." But she looked away, trembling. "Freedom for you. Scandal for me. I cannot keep living in this storm, Logan. I need to disappear before they destroy us both." His heart sank. "Disappear? I am ending the contract," she said. "It was supposed to be temporary anyway. It is time we stopped pretending." He reached out to her. "Maya, wait." She pulled back. "Please, do not make this harder. You deserve to rebuild without me dragging you down. Maybe someday they will forget my name." And before he could stop her, she walked past him, leaving the ring on the counter. The sound of the door closing echoed through the apartment like a verdict. Hours later, the rain came again, washing over the city in a steady rhythm. Logan stood on the balcony, his hair soaked, his phone clutched in his hand. He replayed their last conversation in his head, over and over. Every word felt like another layer of armor cracking. He thought about chasing her, about using every resource he had to find her, but something in him knew she needed distance. For the first time, she wanted control over her story. Inside, the penthouse felt emptier than ever. Her sketchbook was still on the coffee table. He opened it slowly and saw a half-finished drawing, two figures standing in the rain, facing the flashes of cameras together. Above them, in small handwriting, she had written one line, "Sometimes love begins as a lie and ends as the only truth left." He closed the book, holding it to his chest. The city outside kept shining, indifferent and endless. But for Logan Hale, every light now reminded him of the one person who had made him see what it meant to be human. Across town, Maya sat on a bench under the awning of a small train station, watching puddles ripple under the rain. She had her backpack beside her, her coat damp, her heart heavy. She whispered quietly, "Maybe this is how it was always supposed to end." But even as she said it, she reached into her pocket and touched the silver ring she had not been able to leave behind. For all her attempts to let go, part of her already knew love was not something you could erase. It was something that waited, quietly, until the right time to return. Weeks passed, and the city moved on to new stories, new scandals. But for Logan Hale, time had stopped the night Maya walked out. The penthouse no longer felt like a home. It was just glass and silence. Every morning, he still made 2 cups of coffee before remembering there was no one left to drink the other. He threw himself into work again, not as the CEO of Hale Properties, but as a man trying to rebuild from the ground up. He sold his shares quietly, withdrew from board politics, and disappeared from the press. Reporters called it a fall from grace. To him, it felt like the first honest breath in years. Then, one evening, while sorting through his mother's old foundation files, he found a name that stopped him, cold Grace Bennett. He scrolled through the scanned documents and realized the truth. His mother had once approved a hospital grant for Grace Bennett's medical treatment almost 15 years ago. It was the same last name, the same address as Maya's childhood home. Logan sat back, stunned. It was not just fate that had brought them together. Their lives had crossed long before that night in the rain. His family's wealth had once helped save Maya's mother, and now, all these years later, Maya had unknowingly saved him from a life without purpose. He knew what he had to do. The next day, he visited the same church shelter where she had once stayed. The staff recognized him instantly, whispering his name as he walked past the rows of folding chairs. He asked for the coordinator, an older man named Pastor Williams. "I am looking for Maya Bennett," Logan said quietly. The pastor studied him for a moment. "She left a few days ago, said she needed to find something of her own again. But she comes by sometimes to help with the kids' art program. She always brings sketchbooks." Logan's throat tightened. "Did she say where she went?" The pastor smiled kindly. "She said if you were meant to find her, you would." He pointed to a wall covered in children's drawings. Among them was a small charcoal sketch, 2 figures standing in the rain under an umbrella. Beneath it, in familiar handwriting, were the words, "Kindness never forgets where it began." Logan stood there for a long moment, realizing it was not a goodbye. It was a breadcrumb trail, a quiet message left for him to follow. A week later, the Hale Foundation held its annual charity gala. For the first time, Logan attended not as a host or a headline, but as a guest. The event was raising funds for a new project called Home Light, a design initiative to build affordable housing for families recovering from homelessness. When the presentation began, a new director walked onto the stage, a young woman in a simple black dress, holding a portfolio. Logan froze. It was Maya. The crowd applauded as she spoke into the microphone, her voice steady but full of feeling. Home light is not just about building walls and roofs. It is about giving people back their dignity, their hope, and their sense of belonging. Because no one should have to earn the right to feel at home. Her eyes met his across the room, and for a moment, the noise of the crowd faded. He saw surprise flicker across her face, followed by something warmer recognition. After the presentation, he approached her slowly, unsure if she would walk away again. But she did not. She stayed. "You found me," she said softly. "You left directions," he replied with a faint smile. She laughed under her breath. "You really gave up everything." He shook his head. "I did not give up anything that mattered. I just finally learned what did." For a moment they stood in silence, the room spinning quietly around them. The world had written 1,000 versions of their story, but none of them had ever captured this two people who had lost everything but found each other again. And as the lights dimmed over the crowd, Logan knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of the truth they had both been searching for all along. The weeks that followed the gala felt like sunrise after a long storm. The tabloids lost interest, and for once, the story of Logan Hale and Maya Bennett stopped being a scandal and became something else, a quiet symbol of change. The Home Light project took off faster than anyone expected. Donations poured in, not because of the Hale name, but because of Maya's message. People resonated with her words about dignity, hope, and second chances. She spent her days at the foundation's workshop downtown, helping architects design small, sustainable homes. Logan often stopped by unannounced, dressed simply, carrying coffee for everyone, and staying to help with the heavy lifting. The world had shifted for both of them. There were no more cameras, no more contracts, just work that felt real. One afternoon, the foundation hosted its first community open house. Families walked through the model homes. Children laughed and ran between the rooms. Maya stood near the door, greeting visitors, her smile radiant but calm. Logan watched from a distance, his chest swelling with something deeper than pride. When she finally turned and saw him, her smile widened. "You came," she said. "I would not have missed this for anything," he replied. She led him through the exhibit. On one wall hung framed photographs of the project's progress, construction, volunteers, and one picture of Maya holding a paintbrush, laughing under the sunlight. At the center of the room stood a large board titled "The First Home." It was dedicated to Grace Bennett and Clara Hale, the two women who had unknowingly connected their lives long before their children met. Maya touched the plaque gently. "Your mother would have liked this." He nodded. "So would yours." For a while, they said nothing, just stood there, letting the moment speak for them. Around them, people were building something that mattered, and for the first time, both of them felt like they belonged somewhere without pretending. Later that evening, after the guests had gone, Logan stayed behind to help her clean up. The light through the window had turned golden, reflecting off the sketches pinned to the walls. Maya looked at him, her voice quiet but sure. "You know, I used to think our kiss ruined my life." He smiled faintly. "And now? Now I think it saved it." He stepped closer. "It saved mine too." The silence that followed was soft, warm, and full of meaning. She reached for her sketchbook and opened it to a new page. "There is one last design I want to finish," she said. "It is for a gallery we will build someday, a place where stories like ours can be told." Logan looked down at her drawing, then back at her. "Then we will build it together." Outside, the city lights flickered on, glowing like a promise. The past had broken them, but the future finally was theirs to design. A year later, spring returned to the city like a breath of forgiveness. The streets that once carried headlines of scandal now carried posters of hope, the Home Light exhibition, stories of second chances. It was Logan's idea, but Maya's heart that made it real. Together, they had turned their past into a project that belonged to everyone who had ever been overlooked. The exhibition was held in a converted warehouse near the East River. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, glinting off framed sketches, photographs, and art pieces created by residents of the new Home Light communities. In the center of the room stood a massive installation, a photograph enlarged to life size. It was that single image that had started everything. Logan kissing Maya under the storm of flashing cameras. Beneath it was a plaque that read, "The moment that changed everything." Maya stood quietly in front of it, her fingers tracing the edge of the frame. "It is strange," she said softly, "how one reckless act can become the turning point for so many lives." Logan joined her side, his hand finding hers. "It was never reckless," he said. "It was the first honest thing I ever did." Quote, reporters had been invited, but this time the flashes of their cameras felt different, gentler, respectful. No one was chasing a scandal. They were capturing a story of redemption. As the evening continued, the crowd moved toward the far end of the gallery where a small stage had been set up. Logan took the microphone. His voice was calm, filled with conviction. "Exactly 1 year ago," he began, "I made a choice that changed my life. I thought I was saving myself from an unwanted marriage, but what I found instead was truth. This exhibition is not about wealth or status. It is about what happens when you stop pretending and start living with purpose." He turned toward Maya, his words slowing. "This is also about one woman who reminded me that kindness is not weakness, and love is not something you earn, it is something you give freely." The audience grew still. Then, in front of everyone, Logan reached into his pocket and pulled out the old contract. The paper was wrinkled, the ink faded. "This was the agreement that brought us together," he said. "A list of rules meant to keep us from feeling anything real. I think it is time we end it properly." He tore the paper in half, letting the pieces fall to the floor. Then he knelt, holding out a small box. Inside was a simple gold ring. The crowd gasped softly, but Maya just stood there, eyes wide, her hand trembling. "Last year I kissed you to escape," Logan said. "Tonight I asked to kiss you to stay. Will you marry me not for the cameras, not for the world, but for us?" Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and the room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed again, but this time neither of them looked away. The kiss that followed was not about escape or scandal, it was about home. And as the light of evening poured through the glass windows, it felt as though the city itself exhaled, finally at peace, with the story that had begun with one reckless kiss and ended with something true. Spring melted into summer, and for the first time in years, everything felt calm. The headlines that once chased Logan and Maya had faded into the background, replaced by stories of the home-light communities opening across the country. Families who had once been forgotten were now holding keys to new homes. Their lives changed because two people had dared to turn a scandal into something meaningful. Logan and Maya were married in a small ceremony at the same riverside gallery where the exhibition had been held. There were no paparazzi, no flashing lights, just a few close friends, volunteers from the foundation, and the hum of the city beyond the glass. She wore a simple ivory dress, the same silver ring from their contract replaced now by the gold one he had given her. As they exchanged vows, the minister smiled. "You began with a misunderstanding," he said, "but love has a way of finding truth through chaos." When Logan kissed her, the guests applauded, not because they were witnessing something glamorous, but because they were witnessing something real. After the ceremony, they walked hand in hand along the riverfront. The breeze carried the scent of rain, and the skyline shimmered like a memory. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "It feels strange," she said. "We spent so long pretending, and now it all feels simple." He smiled. "That is what happens when the truth finally wins." She laughed softly. "You know, I kept my old gray coat." He looked at her, amused. "The one from that night?" "Yes," she said. "It reminds me that we can survive anything as long as we do not forget where we came from." Logan stopped walking, reached into his bag, and pulled out a small frame display. Inside it was the fabric from that same gray coat, carefully preserved beside a copy of their first tabloid photo. Beneath it, an inscription read, "One act of kindness changed everything." Maya stared at it, tears welling in her eyes. "You kept it?" He nodded. "It deserves to be remembered." They returned home that evening to the new building they had designed together, the Hale Bennett Community Center, a space dedicated to helping people rebuild their lives. On the wall in the main hall hung the same framed piece, lit by soft golden light. Every person who entered the center would see it before anything else, a symbol of how compassion could rewrite even the harshest stories. As the night deepened, Logan stood by the window, watching the lights of the city. Behind him, Maya was sketching again their future, their dreams, the next project that would help others. He turned and said quietly, "We started with a mistake." She looked up and smiled. "No, Logan, we started with a moment of courage, and courage is never a mistake." He kissed her forehead, and the camera of the world that had once judged them now felt irrelevant. Their story was no longer about wealth, scandal, or redemption. It was about two people who had learned that love, when built on honesty and grace, could outshine every headline. And as the city lights flickered across the river, Logan whispered, "Home is not a place anymore, it is you." For the first time, Maya believed it completely.